Hi, everybody. It's Peter Giannetti from Home World Business and Gourmet Insider. And I'm here today with Cindy Morris, President and CEO of the Dallas Market Center, and Cole Daugherty, Senior Vice President of Marketing Communications for DMC. We're talking about the resumption of markets at the Dallas Market Center, which will see several markets return in August, including the Total Home and Gift Market, which is set for August 19th through 25th. Cindy, Cole, thanks for joining us today.
Peter, thanks for having us.
You know, it's an interesting and an exciting time for you, I'm sure, as you're getting ready for the Total Home and Gift Market. It's been an interesting several months to be sure, but I think the industry is very interested to see how this next wave of markets kind of go and how the resumption of face-to-face kind of looks in this business. But before we get started, I think it's important for our audience to understand what type of protocols Dallas Market Center has put in place as it gets ready for the Total Home and Gift Market.
You know, Peter, we actually reopened the buildings on May 4th. And so we've had, a fair amount of time as we work through the health and safety protocols, which obviously are paramount as you reopen and conduct markets. And we also had an incredibly successful apparel market in June. So we really feel like, we've had one market to experience. We hit 88% of prior year attendance. But as you look at health and safety, beyond, obviously requiring masks and checking temperatures, there are a lot of other pieces at play. So, let me kind of back up just a little bit. On June 20th, Dallas County mandated masks. And so at that point, masks were required. I also had a conversation with Dr. Trish Pearl, who's the head of infectious disease at UT Southwestern. And we talked about, what is that mask requirement going to mean? And how long will it take for us to really see cases drop based on that? And she said 4 weeks. And I will tell you, almost to the day, cases started dropping in Dallas County 4 weeks after the masks were mandated. Right. And in fact, the different parts of the state, if you look at Texas, it takes as long to drive from Dallas to South Texas as it does Dallas to Kansas City. And so we're such a huge state, and you have to look at Texas, in areas. And here in Dallas County, our cases have dropped by 50% in recent weeks. And so we're feeling really good about where we are now.
Wow,
but when you look at market, we've got the mask mandate, we're checking temperatures. We also are doing a deep clean sanitation of all common areas prior to market opening. And the other, I think, real advantage, and it's also provides a lot of safety for our buyers and our exhibitors, it's just the natural layout of our buildings. If you look at it, we have really wide corridors. We have, a lot of escalators, and we're mandating, 3 steps in between. We have elevators where we're mandating no more than 2 people per elevator. So it's really very easy to social distance in this marketplace. And even our temps are socially distanced. And so, health and safety is paramount. And I will tell you that when you looked at the June market, I think that it really went off flawlessly. People were so pleased with the business they did, but they felt so comfortable to be in this facility and to be able to conduct business.
Was there something you learned from the June market that kind of you can apply as you go into this next wave of markets?
Well, I'll step in and answer that really quickly. I think that there's a value that we've learned here of a couple of things as we reopened and successfully welcomed buyers back in. For a June market, we did about 10,000 temperature checks and really are comfortable with a seamless, quick process to safely get people into the facility. We also were able to evaluate our signage for social distancing, right, our hand sanitation stations, our signs about how to keep distance, but also to make people feel comfortable as they come into market. And again, I go back to the idea of we've held successful event in June. We've had open houses. We've had First Monday, First Tuesday. And the idea in Dallas is that we will continue to have events throughout the summer, into the fall, the remainder of the year. So when people feel comfortable and on their terms, we welcome them back in. But I think, again, those key learnings coming out of June are that people felt comfortable. They came. They They replied back to us that they felt safe, they felt good about what we did, but most importantly, what the showrooms were doing. And we feel very confident going into the August shows for those reasons.
That's great. Before we get into some of the specifics with the forthcoming home and gift market, Cindy, talk about the importance of resuming face-to-face markets, in-person connection between buyer and seller.
You know, when you talk to buyers, and we spend an incredible amount of time talking to buyers. When we were all, the shelter in place, I was doing Zoom calls with buyers and talking with them and hearing about how they were adapting and adjusting. And I was so impressed by what I heard and the spirit that they had, how they were doing curbside delivery, how they were doing, promotions. Some were doing gift bags to their best customers. They were obviously doing online. But what they continue to tell me is we can't wait to get back to market. What we want to see new product. We want to be able to see each other. We learn from each other. We want to be able to have inspiration as it relates to, trends and merchandising. And I think that, that's really what they look for. It's that, that in-person interaction is so important to us. And even when you talk to people who've been working from home. I was on the phone with a lighting exhibitor this morning, and she said, I can't wait to get back and see people and talk to people. I really miss traveling. But, they survived, and some of them did really well during shelter in place. But, now they need that in-person interaction, and they want to touch and feel new product. They can reorder online easily, but that doesn't replace being able to see that product firsthand.
Cole, what does it mean kind of long-term to market? Obviously markets have had to adapt and you're looking at a balance now of in-person and other ways to reach your constituency. So kind of as we move through the pandemic and hopefully past the pandemic, what are the longer-term implications on markets that we've sort of had to adapt to and learn from in the last few months?
Well, that's a good question, Peter. I think the long-term implications are really a couple different things. As Cindy alluded to, first off, I think there's a real drive for retail to get back to business, back to a sense of normalcy, but there's been changes. I think we've all learned that there's a flexibility and an adaptation that retailers are making on how to discover new products, order new products, connect with each other. And there's a phrase that has been thrown around in retail about how a lot of what's taken place has accelerated the inevitable. And sometimes it's used in a negative sense, but I want to flip that around and say that longer term, I think that we've seen an acceleration of the inevitable about how to marry together online and in person, but more importantly, accelerating the inevitable in the sense that people still need to discover new products and to connect with one another. And you can use the digital to help the physical and work hand in hand in that way. I think that long term for us, a couple of things play out. That is that we're well positioned, we think, to serve this new reality for buyers coming in when they're ready. We've been leading in that sphere for a long time, and that will continue. And we're able to do that. And number two, I think that the product discovery realm, that's motivated us to think about more ways in which longer term to inspire and to deliver content, deliver inspiration and connection that matters to retailers, and to connect buyers and sellers together, both on-site and also virtually.
But as we kind of look to this first, the return of the total home and gift market, let's talk about expectations in terms of attendance. I know you put out a press release that 95% of the showrooms are going to be open for the August markets, and that includes more than 800 permanents and 450 temps, I believe. But what are your expectations in terms of attendance on the buyer and the exhibitor side, the supplier side, and what are their primary needs? But let's start with Cindy on expectations for the attendance in this market.
Peter, it's tough to project what attendance is going to look like. We do think that it will probably be more regional, just because you still have people that may not want to fly. But when we look at our markets, I think we're so different from other market centers in that we're not traditional and that mean being solely focused on market time, because we've had these events all summer. We had an open house in early June, we had a market at the end of June, we had an open house in July, we have August market, and those events continue all through the fall. And so, when we try to gauge what does one market look like, we really have to look at our business 365 days a year, because that's how our exhibitors look at it.
Right.
I mean, and I think that if you even really look at the home side of the business, they have been so grateful to have had the opportunity to pick up business here the last 3 months and daily business. And so, we look at market, but we also look far beyond market. And, one quick thought I just want to share with you is I've gotten a lot of comments and feedback from retailers, and particularly since June market. And I had one retailer send an email to me last week, and I just want to read it to you because I think it really exemplifies the retailer's perspective on what we're doing.
Yeah.
And she said, just a quick note in case you don't hear it enough. We really appreciate all you are doing to keep us all safe at market. I'm local. I've been in several times over the last 2 months, and I always feel extremely safe while at DMC. Thanks so much for keeping the temps open too. So helpful to have access to temps as a clothing boutique, and we really appreciate that you all are allowing market to happen with as normal a layout as possible. So I think that really comes straight from a buyer who's been here and has been experiencing all summer what we've been doing.
Right. Hey, Cole, do you sense that it's more than just transactional? People do want to kind of get to market, feel that it's as inspirational as it might have been previously and not just a place to write an order. And as much as writing orders is often the measure of success at a market, sometimes the real success is what happens kind of in your head after the market, where you get ideas from. Cole?
Well, it is. It's 365 days a year. And I'm sitting here in the middle of the trade mart, and over my shoulder is where a portion of our temps are actually the construction. You may be able to hear it is taking place to set up for that. And also over my shoulder is a showroom I visited just a couple of weeks ago. When I walked in, he said to me, "Today is Oklahoma Day." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "I am seeing store after store come in today off market from Oklahoma. They're ready. They needed to come in. They feel comfortable coming in off market. And it's great to be able to serve them on their own terms." So that's a point I wanted to raise, but also the idea of the relationships that exist either on-site, off-market, or on-site during the show are more important than ever. And of course, we all use social media or we use emails to connect to one another, but it's the conversations that are had here and the conversations that continue to understand and to take a look and survey the trends, to see exactly what's new, to compare and contrast, and to be able to discover what's new and what can help position you for success. We think that's unprecedented and something that we're able to offer not simply within categories like housewares, gourmet, but also into other categories like gift, even fashion accessories, which have become so critically important for gift stores too. It's really that approach, not just 365 days a year, but 360 degrees at market, to walk the halls, discover new products, and get inspired and find things that are best-selling, but also one of a kind.
Buyers are looking to differentiate themselves. I mean, it's at the top of their list. How do they become different from their competitor? What we really pride ourselves on here in Dallas is we truly are the only lifestyle market in America. I mean, you can come here and you can buy every single category of product you need, whether it's, apparel and accessories, gift, home, lighting, floral, holiday, design.
Obviously it's a showroom, oriented marketplace, but temporaries have always been an important part of the distinction at Dallas, and they will be open, which is, adds that maybe that sense of normalcy, but that also that layer of discovery.
It's really our responsibility as a market center to look for every way we can to help them all do business, whether they're, rep or manufacturer, or they're permanent or temporary. I mean, what can we do to help bring their product to market and help bring that retailer to them so that they can continue this, the exchange of goods and services? When we looked at the market and moving from June to August, I did a Zoom call with retailers, and we talked about timing because I really wanted to hear what makes sense for them. And they said, we're closed now, most of us, in April and into May, and we need June and July to be able to rebound, see how business is going. And many of them have been in June and July, and August is a great time for market. But they're buying differently. I mean, they're buying closer to need. I mean, they're having to look at their sales and spend money. And so, again, it all comes back to, if we can bring them temps and that can help them differentiate themselves, and that helps that temp exhibitor, because we're all in this together and we have to help everybody do business right now. We've got to get to the other side of this.
Cole, you mentioned, obviously the need to be 365 days with your constituency and how the market remains an important part, but there are other aspects of this. And I think the pandemic has taught everyone to be a little bit more efficient, creative, and robust from a digital and virtual standpoint. What specific things have Dallas introduced, and looking forward, how will you integrate more digital connections, digital content, digital marketplace perhaps, into the kind of integrated effort that keeps the in-person market at the forefront?
Digital really has become the front line of communication out to our community and within our communities, talking to one another. We certainly learned that during shelter in place, and as Cindy alluded, to hold Zoom calls and conferences and listening sessions and focus groups, if you will, directly with customers to hear from them. And to her point, they were so successful to listen and to ask multiple questions and to have dialogue, really. And you can conduct a ton of surveys, and they have their value, that's for certain. But truly to listen to customers collectively and one-on-one is what matters. And some of those digital tools allow us to do that very, very efficiently. That will no doubt continue. I will say that social media for the Market Center has grown tremendously in the last few years, but over the last few months, it's become even more important. We've seen engagement go through the roof as people were curious and interested and hungry for information. But I will also say that I think it's incumbent upon market centers, brands, retailers, not to deliver content for content's sake, but to understand exactly what matters to people and to deliver the right kind of content and the right kind of platform and the right kind of moment to help business. So we've been judicious, but I think we've learned a tremendous amount about how folks operate in this sort of new paradigm and what's going to matter to them in terms of discovery, in terms of assistance, because there's a lot of noise out there and a lot of options that are available to us. It's really the dilemma of choice, if you will. And so I think our value as a virtual provider of information is to be judicious with that and to make sure that when we do things, and I think our fall design week will be a perfect example of that. We'll host that in September, to deliver content that really helps.
I do want to thank both of you, Cindy and Cole, for being with us today. I want to give you an opportunity. If there's one thing, Cindy, one message you want to get out to the constituency, the DMC constituency, and those who in particular are involved with the total home and gift market, what would that message be?
Yeah, that message would be, Peter, I mean, we have so much to be thankful and grateful for right now. And I think as an industry, we do. I mean, for our retailers who have navigated this, for our exhibitors who are navigating it, I mean, for all of our, media that are navigating it, I mean, the industry as a whole. I mean, we have a lot to be grateful and thankful for, and we are. And we're really looking forward to the future. And we know, there's still a tough road ahead, obviously, as states, we grapple with different issues, and within the businesses we serve. I mean, just now, you watch the news, and even just, kids getting back to school, there's so much, but we're grateful, for all of the industry that we have and the support that they've given us. And we want to in turn do what we can to support them.